There we go. When we were talking, you didn't sound quiet at all.
But
So
did you listen to the recorded
yeah,
video?
yeah, I think Mitch was super loud. I think that
Yeah.
you weren't quiet,
What's
Mitch.
new?
Yeah, Mitch was super loud.
What's
I
new under the stars?
well, the acoustics in that closet probably
It amplifies. It really amplifies everything.
we could talk shit about him because he's not on yet, so he can't defend
Hmm.
himself. So, uh, anything happened today, Philip? You maybe I don't know. What's your ABV right now?
Dude, this is my first drink of the day.
Well,
So cheers.
cheers. Uh, what a
I had to
day.
go to I had to go to physical therapy and all this other stuff, so I haven't been able to partake until now. Um, I just have to do one thing. So just give me a second. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, yeah, we were here. We're supposed to talk about this book, and I hope you all read it. And you're supposed to write at least 3 paragraphs on each story, and you're prepared to read them
A
aloud
book.
tonight.
It's like a book
That
report.
wasn't part of the
I
deal.
missed I missed that assignment.
Oh,
You get extra
this
credit if
happens
you did
every time.
4.
Huh?
My
You get
my
extra credit
dog
if you
ate
did
it.
4.
Your dog ate
Uh,
it. Well, yeah, some of you were supposed to work with partners, whatever.
I need my alcohol first.
Yeah, that's how I differ from school. Alcohol is like mandatory because I want it to be interesting. Yeah,
Man, if we could have drinking, who's the
drinking,
writer here? If we could have
drinking.
drinking in school, it would have been such a, well, who am I kidding? But if we'd been allowed to drink it in school, it would have been a much better
Would have
overall
been.
experience. It would have been better for
You
everybody
went to
involved.
school sober? Weird.
Well, like I said, if it was that we were allowed to, if it was, you know,
If it was encouraged, if it
if it
was
was encouraged.
like on Jerry Springer where they get the guests a little bit, they give them a little bit they put a little gas in the tank before they would go out on stage.
Sure,
And
sure.
it makes for a better show, some better classroom experience.
But I
Hmm.
thought that was called college because you can go out to the bar before you go to class, and
Yeah, I think college is mostly hung over though. So you're not getting that prime creativity. You're not really capturing it. So you get a kegerator in the front of the room, you reward people for class participation with a couple of cold ones, and then you get some lively banter.
Okay, I think I'm done with my nonsense.
Okay, I'm done with my stalling now, so that was the delay tactic.
Oh
Um,
my God.
so yes, I do want
Okay.
to talk about No One Is Safe. I am normally not a huge fan of short fiction, right? I'm not. It's like I get the Stephen King collections because I'm a Stephen King fan.
I have I have my copy of No One is Safe right here for the book. I didn't write my book report, but I do have the book here. Oh, this is an
Well,
arc. It's embarrassing. Don't I have like a real one somewhere?
well, what has changed between the arcs? So hopefully, if you
Just
have the,
typos, just
the
typos and
lefty
stuff.
arc, um,
I don't have a copy of this book. It was I have like 5,000 books in my office. I don't have a copy of No One is Safe. I don't know. I'm disorganized.
I saw you posted a picture of like 8,000 copies earlier. Did you sell them all? Did you give them away? Did you?
Today?
No, I don't
No.
know. Like when they
Oh,
first came
so
out.
no, I have a box of them somewhere. You guys can't see, but there's like all this boxes and stuff, and all this. Not, it's all. I'm a mess right now. I'm so disorganized.
Yeah.
I'm doing too many things at the same time.
What I would like to see is what's above your head, because every time we talk, you're like, "Oh yeah, that super rare thing. Where is it?" And you're like, pluck it from up there. Like that's the
Yeah,
angle we all want.
everything cool is
Yeah.
like right up here. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, it's actually beautiful. I've photographed that shelf and put it in Fracassi Freaks before.
Well, you don't
So-
even
so
have Mitch one-upped you with that glossy Gothic.
the glossy Gothic, yeah. I do have a copy of Norna's Safe, by the way, normal copy, so we're good.
So I was saying I usually don't like short stories, but because it's such a tease, like, you know, when you really, really like the story and you're really into it, and then it's like done. And I do wonder, like, how do you decide it's a short story versus a novel? Because you're reading some of these, you're like, you can go, for example, Row. Row could
Yeah.
have been a huge book. I mean, it could have. How do you know, like, when it's just that?
See, I don't think so because I think it's a matter of how long can you prolong tension. And I think Row, I felt very strongly was going to be a 10,000 word story. I think it actually came in a little longer than that, but I think it's like 12,000 words. Maybe I have to look, but I knew, I knew when I think of a story, I pretty much know the blocks. You know, the here this happens and this is going to happen, and I can kind of say like, well, how long is that going to take, and without it feeling stretched, and so that yeah, I have a you know I have a lot of faults, but one thing I'm actually fairly good at is I can pretty much nail a story within like 1,000 words when I think of it, how long it's going to be. Um, Very rarely am I wrong. Uh, Even a novel, I can usually nail within 5,000 words before I even start writing it.
No, when you say you nail it, like you're coming in with your guesstimate and you're within
Yeah.
1,000, is that after you've outlined it?
No, I don't outline my short stories. No,
Okay.
I'll have the idea and I'll be like, that's a 7,500 word story, or that's a 10,000 word
Wow.
story, or that's a two. Yeah, I can do that pretty easily. Like it's pretty easy for me to do that. I know if it's going to be, within, like I said, plus minus 1,000 words, call it. But I knew like Bro is like between 10 and 12,000 words, much like Alter, much like Mother. I kind of knew as well. I knew, when you're ready to sort like The Wish, I knew that was going to be pretty tight. I knew Death of My Old Friend was going to be pretty tight. So it's just because I know what kind of story it is, and I know what I want to say, and I know how I want to say it before I start writing it. So I pretty much know how it's gonna. I mean, sometimes I'm a little surprised. I was a little surprised at, for example, when I wrote uh, uh, this one. Oh my god, the Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre, not the real cover, not the real book. This is I make this for myself so I can reread it and correct it. I thought that was going to be short. I thought that was going to be like 80,000 words, which is about the size of Third Rule of Time Travel.
Mhm.
And it ended up being 100,000 words. So I was way off on that one. It just kind of once I got in there, I was kind of like, I want to take my time a little bit with these characters. I want to take my time a little bit with this situation and with this. So I just kind of I kind of slowed down a little bit. But in fairness to me and my misjudgment, when I first thought of the book, I thought it was going to be more of a straight slasher, and it ended up being a little bit more of I guess would say a little more character driven with a strong slasher through line.
Mm.
And I didn't, and I wasn't expecting it. My plan was not to write that. My plan was to write like a slasher, like all action, foot in the gas. But I changed it once I started the book because for personal reasons, was what I had gone through this past year with my parents and everything. I wanted to put a lot of what I went through into the book. And so I ended up making it a little bit more personal than I thought it would be. So anyway, so that's why I think it got a little long. But yeah, to answer your question, so I don't. The only other incident was Gothic was kind of Gothic when I wrote Gothic originally as a novella, which was about 40. It was a big novella. It was like 40,000 words, and it was supposed to be the last story in Beneath the Pale Sky. But then my agent at the time, who's now deceased, I didn't kill her. She was like, dude, just fluff this out to 75, add another 30,000 words and you've got a novel. And so everyone here knows the difference between writing a short story or a novella and a novel is very significant as far as what your return can be on it.
Mhm.
Even if it's a short novel or even a novella that could be published by like a Tor or a Nightfire, the financials are completely, like, you're talking a couple $100 for a short story versus potentially tens of thousands of dollars. So it's a big deal to be like, can this be stretched into a novel? You really want to kind of, if you can, you do it. But so it's interesting because I'm planning on a novella called Overpass, which I'm going to write this year before the end of the year. And I've been really tug of warring in my own head whether I want it to be a novel or a novella, because they're kind of two different stories. And I think I'm going to write it as a novella. But I'm and yeah, I just think as a novel, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, it would be too much of a stretch. I think I'd rather be like a really impactful novella than kind of a so-so novel. So
Well,
I really want it to be, there's just not enough action for a novel. There's not enough character. There's not enough going on. It's not a big enough world. It's really
yeah,
all.
no, and I could see that, like in some of these stories, it's like, yeah, you made the point. You got to the thing, you got to the emotion, you hit that theme, and you don't want to overstay your welcome. And I do appreciate that about your work, where you do what you need, you do what you came to do. But on the other hand, you mentioned that with Gothic before about your agent suggesting a little extra, and that extra you brought to it was really cool. So
Right.
it was the woman who was that
Diana
yeah,
Montresor.
so
Yeah.
she was the one that with the desk, and she was involved with it. So that to me set up a real nice, not only backstory, but some really cool tension too, with how that was going to go.
Yeah. None of that was in the original novella. Correct. The I always talk about Cujo. It's the example I always give. But how much better a book would Cujo be if it was a novella? In my mind, it's like that thing loses so much tension when he keeps, like, if you reread that book, Stephen King spends chapters talking about cereal. Like, it's like, dude,
Well,
nobody cares. We
it
want
was
to know
in
what's
the
happening in the
news.
car.
Yeah, but that thing was, I remember that because it was the Frankenberry crisis,
Yeah.
and it was something that was, it kind of got, there was a point there, I think, but
Kids
perhaps a
died.
belabored point. Yeah.
What, Stephen?
Kids died, and their somebody quit, like their spokesman quit, if I remember
In real
correctly.
life. In real life, you're saying?
Yeah, but
Oh,
not
no.
in the book.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just felt there was
Yeah.
so much. I felt it was, he was fluffing it. I mean, it's already a short novel. It's probably 70,000 words, and I just felt he was fluffing it out to make it a
Yeah.
novel. But anyway, no offense to Stephen King, he's done okay. But
he's kind of cobbled together a career.
I try not to do that. I don't want to take a novella and expand it just because I can make more money selling it as a novel. I would only do that if I felt like I would only write a novel if I felt it was justified to be novel length.
Yeah.
So, and the shortest novel I've written was Third World Time Travel. That came in around 75,000 words. Compare that to Bird Box, which is 63,000 words. So that's my shortest novel. The most of my novels end up between 90 and 100.
Yeah. Well, what was Child Alone?
160,000.
Yeah.
That was an anomaly. But I would like to do another big novel.
Yes.
Please.
I just need, the problem is I need time. I need to know that I have like a year to write this book. And I need to know I'm not going to have to be pulled away to write another book or another, or come up with another or whatever. I just need to, if I know I have that time, if I know I have like, call it 6 months to a year, call it a year, then I think I could really get into writing like a big book, which might be a Sabbath book, or it might be,
Yes.
or it might be another book that I have called The Chariot, but that would be a big undertaking. So anyway, yeah.
Well, I think A24 filled your hourglass, did they not? They poured some sand in there for you so that we can get that Sabbath book. That's exactly why they did that.
It's very nice to be able to finally say out loud, not that I haven't been saying it out loud in our podcast, but it is nice to be able to say like, hey, yes, Alter is being made into a movie by A24. I haven't quite got used to the fact that I can just say it now. It's okay. It's all because I have known this for a year and I haven't been able to say anything about it. And it's been, as you can imagine, you know, it's big news that you're always sort of like bubbling with. You go to these conventions, you want to talk about it, and you can't really. So it's nice that it's. I'm glad the news is finally out, and they start filming next month, and in Canada, and I'm going to go up there for a bit, and hopefully it comes out next year. You know, I would think. I don't think
Really,
it's going to be
that it would be that fast of a turnaround?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they've been kind of fast tracking it the whole way. So yeah, because if you think about it, they'll be done filming by end of September. It's only like a 30-day shoot. So
Wow.
then you've got, call it, even if you have 6 months of visual effects and editing and all that other stuff, you're still barely into summer of next year. So they'll so yeah, so I think it'll be done. I think it'll probably come out before the end of next year. I don't know that for sure. I'm just guessing based on but yeah, they're filming it like I said, they're filming it August and September, and then that's it, and then they go in straight into post. So
Did you do the
and they can't
screenplay?
take too long with it because the director's got other projects. You know, everyone's moving. You know, they're going to get it done and move on.
Phil, you were
Did you-
asking.
Yeah, did Philip do the screenplay?
No, I didn't do the
William-
screenplay. A guy named Will Sudik, Soodik, who's a very wonderful guy, a friend. Me and him and the director have become friends over the last year. We've had many conversations, many Zooms. I've read this multiple drafts of the script, given a lot of notes. So it's been really fun to work with them. They've shown me visuals and asked for feedback, and so they've really involved me in the process, which has been great.
That's awesome.
Will wrote for Westworld. So he was a staff writer in Westworld. He's very, you know, he's got experience, and yeah, so he wrote the script, and the script is absolutely bonkers. So I think people are going to be blown away.
Do they give you like a consulting credit on that? I mean, or was that
No,
just part
I'll
of
get
making it happen?
No, I'll get a based on like like a screen credit. My screen credit will be based on the short story by Philip Fracassi, based on the short story Alter by Philip Fracassi.
That's
Yeah,
so cool.
so that's in my contract where they have to put it on the, you know, when they do like the front credits. I have to have the same, like when you do use contracts, you negotiate like, well, I have to have the same size as like the writer and the director and the whoever. So yeah, it's like one of the things you like work into the deals. So yeah, it'll be like a front credit, just saying based on the short story by Philip Fracassi. So, but I'm not I won't get a credit for like writing or anything like that. If I sell another project, I would probably be more involved, and I probably get like an executive producer credit or whatever, because when I sold this book story, I didn't really have a film agent. So I kind of did it myself, really, and like a lawyer look at the paper. But so I didn't really push for a lot of that stuff that people push for now. When you see like Dan Simmons or Victor Laval, when those guys make TV shows, they always get EP credits or movies EP credits. So yeah. So anyway, but yeah, but hopefully one day I'll get an opportunity to write one of the movies. But that's, if it happens, it happens, and if not, I'm happy just to write the story part.
I think it's awesome. You're starting, and I'm not like, again, I'm about the books. Like books are my thing. That's where I want to be. But I have tremendous respect for A24. I think they do. They care about the story, and they care about the depth of the characters, and I think they care about really making you think and engaging you that way. Like I said, I didn't realize Longlegs was an A24 movie, but
I
It's
didn't
not.
think it is.
It's
a
Neon,
movie.
which
okay,
it's similar. Neon's sort of a lower budget A24.
okay.
So A24 movies are around 10 to 20 million, and Neon movies are more like 5 to 10 million. There's a little lower budget, but they're same kind of. I mean, A24, to your point, is one of the. And I had this conversation when I talked to like producers and executives and guys who I had meetings with. Like, we straight up say like A24 is the only studio doing original content.
Yes.
And it's so people really want to work with them. I mean, people like creative people really want to work with them, directors and writers. But the studios just want Exorcist 5 and Nun 7 and Annabelle 24. They don't want new stuff. So it's hard. It's really hard to break through with something like new. That's why stuff like Longlegs was Neon and Everything Everywhere All at Once was A24, and those guys those are the kind of the studios that are making those kind of movies, original idea movies. But studios just kind of they just don't. It's too much risk, for them, and nobody wants to green light it because if it flops, then they're on the hook, and so
and yet we have Disney creating things that absolutely nobody wants to see, and they just lose tons of money. So I don't understand where they're making the decisions, but I'm glad that, and I hope that studios like Neon and A24 can like I thought the Blair Witch Project back in its day would shake people up and realize you can do something with story and not focus on
brand.
big flashy shit, and just churning out the same thing. Because whatever you think of Blair Witch, it tried something new, and I wanted to see that get rewarded. And once they saw how much it made, and the same thing with Paranormal,
then they made a crappy sequel.
and then it gets
Right.
into the treadmill. I don't know. I got a dog, man. I got a dog. I don't know if you guys can hear it. He's screaming, but
I can't hear him.
I didn't hear it. I thought that was Mitch.
It was
We
me.
don't hear the dog
It was-
today.
Sometimes Mitch spits up a little bit as breakfast. You got to slap on the back. Slap on the back to
he
get
needs to be burped.
Hurt me.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked so much shit about you, Mitch, before you got here.
Oh, I know. I had you in my headphones. I heard
Oh,
Here now?
okay.
Sorry.
made me feel very good about myself in my awesome closet.
I can't wait to meet the closet.
Oh,
Come on,
it's gonna
how
be
you
very
were.
exciting. Yeah.
He's gonna have a velvet rope.
It is going to be the shortest tour in
But
history.
most
I
special.
thought the Outsider's house was short, but this is really going to be short.
No, yeah. So whenever every single time I do one of these things, I have to move just a bunch of shit out of my closet because it is just it's a hub for all of my things. And with Fracassi Fest, I have boxes of things that like we're giving out. And so I was moving everything. I was about to go read with my son before I put him down, and I hit my head on this right here and on my doorknob, and I almost cursed the closet and said never again. But I'm here. I'm in the closet. I forgave the closet.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You need the closet.
I need the closet. Yeah, I need the closet.
And the closet needs you.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
So Philip, out of your current works, which one would you like to write the screenplay out of? Out of just the current ones?
You mean my current stories, or the current stories that have been optioned?
Just your current body of work.
Your
Dream one, yeah.
I would like to write the screenplay for Mandala.
Yeah.
Awesome. I actually have written the screenplay for Mandala, but I would like to officially write the screenplay for Mandala. That one I would like to write. I would like to write. I would like to have a crack at Child Alone with Strangers if that would work out. I kind of don't want to write Boys in the Valley because I feel like I've already written it, and I just kind of feel like I want to bring anything new to the table. With Child, I think I could do. With Child, I feel like because that would need a lot of. I would need to change a lot to make the movie version of that work, and that would be fun for me and interesting for me. Whereas Boys, I would just write the book. It would just write what I've already written. It's like the book, so it's just a little different. Gothic, I really wanted that be interested in writing. So I would say Mandala as far as short stories are concerned, and Child if I had had any say in it for
What about
novels.
what story from No One Is Safe?
Thank you,
Would you
Mitch.
wanna
Thank
write-
you.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
appreciate
Let's
that.
I'm
are we
just trying
bringing
to
it? Are we
co-host
bringing it?
this.
Are we
That's
bringing it
kinda
I'm
home?
hoping you go
inserting
there,
myself as co-host.
Are we bringing it? Are we bringing it back home?
We are now.
The reason
Well,
we're here.
I will tell you this: in this book, there are a couple stories that have been optioned. Let's see. The Wish has been optioned.
Great
The
one.
Wish was actually optioned like a year ago, and it was kind of weird because between us, or we're recording, aren't we? Well, I'll be vague.
Well, he can cut this.
I
No,
could.
I'll just be vague. There was a very prominent
On the bed.
director who wanted to make The Wish, and there's a producer who controls the rights, and they clashed on vision. So it was very. So the director ended up bowing out, and the producer still has it, and they're still trying to get it made, but not with that director. So I was a little bummed out about that because the director would have been like made.
Oh,
But it's still optioned, and it still might get made. They have a script and they're shopping it. So that one's optioned, and then let's see. My Father's Ashes was optioned at one point, but it is no longer optioned. That option ran out, and that was with Matt Reeves' company, Six in Idaho, who make Batman movies and the monkey movies,
mhm.
Monkey.
The monkey.
Planet of the Apes and stuff like that.
I know.
Um,
It's just how you said it was funny.
um, The Guardian is optioned, and Row is optioned.
Done, dude.
Oh,
Done.
nice.
Row I could see easily as a kick-ass movie. Easily. I mean that.
Yeah, I was surprised that somebody really came in hot on The Guardian. I never really saw that as being a movie, but they were very excited about it. So yeah, so and then yeah, Row is kind of a natural, it seems like it's kind of an obvious cinematic.
So my question with
thing.
that story, like
I don't think I answered Mitch's question, but I don't know which one what was the original question, Mitch?
Which one would you want to write the screenplay
the
for?
screenplay, yeah.
I would write Row if I
Yeah.
could.
That'd be awesome.
I don't think I would want to write The Wish. I wouldn't mind writing the Blob story if that got
Aquarium
made.
diver.
I
Yeah,
like
but
that one.
Yeah, that's a
was
fun
one of my
one, right?
favorites.
That was cool.
Is
Yeah,
great.
if we could get the
That would
rights
be-
to the
That would be
if
a
we could
good
get the
movie.
rights to the Blob, we could do it.
Really? So you'd have to have the rights to the Blob?
Mhm.
You'd have to use the character,
Oh.
or at least
Yes,
Oh.
whatever studio owns those rights. Some studio owns those rights. I do have a producer who was interested, and he's looking into it. So maybe he'll figure it out. But yeah, I would like to write Row. I think I could write Row. I have a pretty good idea of what that would look like as a movie, and that would be fun.
they're working
right.
on a Blob remake. I've read.
Oh, really?
Again?
Well, if it's got a guy in a suit going into the Blob, I'm gonna be
Sue.
very upset.
So do you find it harder to write the screenplay or the actual story to begin with?
For me, it's much easier to write the story because I don't have to worry about anything other than the story. when you write a screenplay, you have to worry about a million practical things. You have to worry about locations. You have to worry about how many extras you'll need. How much is this car crash going to cost? Is there an explosion? How much is that going to cost? Is it realistic to shoot? Can they, what? So you're thinking when you're writing a screenplay, you're thinking in very practical terms as to not just not the creativity of what you are writing, but also the practicality of actually filming what you're writing. So you can't just be like, you got to actually you're writing for it to be made into a film. So you have to be thinking about that constantly. So that's a big reason why I much prefer writing the stories. Although that said, I've read the screenplay for Alter and I have no effing clue how they're going to make it, but God bless. So yeah, so in that sense, it's much easier to write the short stories. And also when you write screenplays, you end up doing a ton of rewriting for all these different departments that have input, like the director will have input, actors will have input. You don't get the location that you wanted. So instead of a church, it's now a school. So you have to rewrite the script and stuff like that. So this is all stuff that's come up with me in the past. And it's kind of fun to do that in a way, as long as you're getting paid for it. But a lot of times you're not. And you're just kind of like rewriting and you're not being paid to do that all the time, especially when you're like an independent writer like I am. If you're a union writer, that's not an issue because everything is stipulated in a contract. Like you get two rewrites, a polish, and that's it, or whatever. So anyway, so that's your question. Yeah, definitely easier for me to write screenplays or stories. Much more fun for me to write stories because I don't think about movies or about it being made into a movie. I really don't. I just think about the story. And the only time I think about it being made into a movie is if I have a story that I feel would be very cinematic or would be very easy to adapt. And what I might do when I'm writing those stories is I might structure it. I might give it a little bit more structure than maybe other stories would have. So it's structured a little bit more like a traditional, like a little bit more like something that you would watch on a TV screen or something. Like, but that's really like it's nothing that I don't think any reader would ever really notice. But for me, it's like I kind of break it up into acts. Like Row is kind of written in a way, it's written in a very cinematic style. Now, whether or not it ever gets made in a movie, I have no idea, but it's written in a very cinematic style. Mandala is written in a very cinematic style. I'm basically cutting from scene to scene to scene in that story, just the way you would see it in a movie, which is so. Whereas other stories like The Wish, for example, even though that's been optioned, I was not thinking at all about that. I was just writing it in a very literary style. So anyway, but yeah, so that's otherwise I don't worry about that stuff.
So I'm surprised that the burden is on the screenwriter to consider budget or to consider all that stuff. I thought it would be like on the producers or on the other people, but I understand rewriting the script once the budget reality hits and they couldn't get some location or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of that. It kind of depends on when they bring you in and all that kind of stuff. In other words, if you come in and like, okay, so when I wrote Girl Missing, I sold that was like a 5-page pitch, and the producer who took it to a studio in the studio, and I knew before I started writing the actual screenplay, I knew it was like a less than $5 million. Like $5 million would be the most they would make that movie for, probably on the high end. So I knew I knew they'd only have a couple $1 million probably. So when I wrote the screenplay, I didn't want to write, they're at a football stadium, shooting cars, and blowing up stuff. So because I just know it's just a waste of time. So in that sense, going in, pretty much what the budget is. But if you were just writing like a spec script, meaning you were just writing it for yourself, and then you would try and sell it to a studio, even then you'd be
Yeah.
like, well, it's much easier to sell a $20 million movie than it is a $100 million movie. And everything can always be, you can always expand it or contract it, but you don't want to go in with something that's so unrealistic that nobody's ever going to make it or even attempt to make it. So it's just
Yeah.
kind of like it's kind of how it kind of, it's case by case. But for the most part, you are thinking about budget. Yes, you're definitely thinking about budget when you're writing a screenplay, no matter what the process is. Even if even if you go in saying like, well, I'm just going to write $100 million movie and let them deal with it. You can always do that. But if your movie's about, two estranged lovers in 1846 Poland, and it's probably not going to be $100 million budget. So, but if it's about aliens blowing up the White House, okay, maybe you can write the big one.
Yeah.
So all things you think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why I hate screenwriting. I just want to write my stories.
I can,
and not
yeah.
worry about it.
When I hear it that way, it's like, shit. I mean, you're totally hamstrung. You're boxed in if you are trying to sell something. They're like, oh, I can't make this. I mean, this guy wants me to buy rights to the Blob, and I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah, and it's why I think like even like Alter, for example, the Alter, if they had made the story, and that was the movie, they could definitely make that for not a lot of money. It's some because it's all the special effects are sort of off camera. You could have like one. You could do it in a way that wouldn't cost a lot of money. You could, but in the screen, but what they're making is like bananas, and it's got to be, it's a much bigger budget than if they would just made What Happens at the Swimming Pool. Is not the whole movie. It's like half the movie.
Yeah.
So they kind of really expanded the universe and went some crazy directions with it.
Is a bathtub involved?
No, no,
Post-credit scene.
no. The director, who's a big fan of my work, has read Fate of Nero, and he did tell me that he was, and the writer, they both read Fate of Nero. When we talked about it, the three of us talked about it, and they did infuse some of the script with some of the ideas in that story, but not what happens in the bathroom.
Oh, lame.
Sort of. No, none of that. There's no bathtub. There's no bathtub. But some of the stuff that happens at the end of that story, for example, is sort of infused into what happens.
There's no bathroom yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yet.
It hasn't been filmed yet.
Post-credit scene, they better have a snake in a bathtub.
Oh, spoiler.
Better. Well, just saying.
You never know. These guys might throw in some Easter eggs. I don't know.
It
But
would
anyway,
be awesome. Yeah.
Mitch is going to be your +1 at the premiere, and then Stephen Dwayne Allison Jr. is
Damn
going
right.
to be his +1, and then I'm going to be Stephen Dwayne Allison Jr.'s +1.
That's right.
my
And
wife
Joshua
can
is
stay
your
home.
+1.
Yeah. Stephanie doesn't like premieres.
Oh,
know.
they're noisy. Yeah.
They are noisy. Yeah, it is, and I do get to go to the premiere, which is nice. It is that's also in my contract.
That's awesome. That's
You would
so
think
cool.
that'd be a given.
These are the things you put in your contracts.
Yeah.
Along with other stuff. No, not really. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, especially being like the source material guy. A lot of times you get kind of a raw deal out of it. So yeah, like Girl Missing didn't even have a premiere because it was so low budget and it was a Lifetime movie. This will have a premiere because A24 movies are always theatrical, even if they're short run or limited theatrical. So yeah, so it'll be. I'm excited for that when that happens. Luckily, I live in LA.
Yeah. Well, you're going to move though, right? You're going to. You're moving.
I don't know.
No comment.
Shit's go. There's a lot of stuff happening, and it might be
Yeah,
a little simpler for us to
I
stay
was
here.
thinking like that is now you have to stay. You're stuck
Yeah.
there.
Well,
You're gonna
there's just a lot of opportunities that have crept up over the last few months, and so we're thinking maybe just not leaving. So I mean, we could still theoretically move, but it was always it was always going to be kind of tricky with Stephanie's job and everything. But but I was like, well, if I'm just writing fiction, I can write anywhere. But now there's other opportunities that are kind of emerging where I might be writing for other stuff, and so it might be best just to stay here.
Did you
Um,
call Josh Mallerman today and say,
Run it
wait,
down, but
Bird Box was on
too clear.
Netflix, right? It was Netflix. Yeah. Netflix, that's a cute little A24 is doing all. Did you do that? Did you flex?
I did not.
No, okay.
I did not flex.
You're
No,
gonna take the high road.
his movie was the biggest streaming film of all time, so I don't have much of a flex. But I have gotten a couple messages from a couple writer friends who I won't name, but you've all read their books, who were like, "Dude, I'm so jealous that you get to work with A24
Yes.
because
Yeah.
like it's just because they just know it's gonna be something really cool, and it is. So I have gotten a couple messages today that reflected that sentiment, but no, I didn't draw the flex on Josh. But Netflix, they're pretty. Netflix and Amazon, at least Netflix, Netflix is pretty. They're probably up there with A24 as far as creating original content. So,
Yeah.
but the difference is they don't do theatrical stuff. But
Right.
And
Whereas
A24
Apple
doesn't cancel
doesn't.
the second season.
Right, and Apple doesn't really do like Apple and Amazon don't really take quite as many chances as Netflix does. Yeah, but yeah,
Well, I'm
it's
glad.
cool. It's cool.
It's awesome. I mean that and I'm glad to hear that because I'm a total outsider. All I am is a fan of movies. I don't know how they're made, and all I know is the vibe and the tone and the talent. And so to hear that it's getting some respect from people who are in the industry or creative, that's cool. That's cool because that's sort of it it validates like, okay, yeah, they are onto something there. And
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. Yeah, it's surprising even to me, and I've worked in the industry my whole adult life on and off, but even me, I'll have like these meetings with these producers. We do a Zoom and um and I'll start to talk about like, well, I had this project coming up with A24 because I am allowed to talk about it with industry folks. That's the kind of unwritten rule. And they'd be like, oh yeah, we know all about Alter. Like we know. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh really? Is it like, yeah, and then the one guy I just talked to a couple weeks ago, he's like, everybody knows. So I think it's got some buzz because it's kind of a mistake. Like you probably, if you read the announcement today, they're kind of playing up the mystery of what it's about a little bit.
Yeah.
Like they're keeping, A24 is keeping details close to the vest. So it's got a little bit of buzz. And I think people are also Igor, the director, even though he just did, from the outsider perspective, it might seem like he's just like this guy who did this Russian sci-fi movie and now he's doing this movie. Igor has been a hot commodity in Hollywood and he has turned down some major shit. Like, and so because he's very adamant, he wants to have full control. He wants of the creative. He wants to make something interesting. He doesn't want to make a Marvel movie or a Disney movie. So he so for him to take on this project was a big deal. So but point being is that I think it's got a little buzz because of him, and you'll see when you read these trade announcements, you can tell what matters when you read the headlines. Like the first two names, Colin McLaughlin, I think is an afterthought to Igor and Lily Kalias, who's this young actress who was in a Sundance movie that got a lot of hype, and she's getting a lot of hype, and I think she was nominated for some awards, and so she's in this movie, so I think that's a big deal because this is her next project right after doing this big Sundance movie that got a ton of buzz. So anyway, so it's just weird what gets people talking, in the industry.
So I want to ask people, what was your favorite story in this, in No One Is Safe? I have my favorite, and one I'm really actually like, damn you for writing Autumn Sugar. Damn you to hell, Philip Fracassi.
Dude.
That
Oh,
was brutal. I mean,
Yeah.
and it shows like what gets to me, right? But that
Yeah.
one was boom. I knew
that
when
one was
It was-
hard.
It was beautiful and
Oh,
brutal.
Yeah.
yes.
That was a dark story.
I read that story for the first time on New Year's Eve going into 2024. I was like, you know what? I'm going to read a Fracassi story to end my year right. Oh, Autumn
I think
Sugar,
I remember
sounds
that.
fun. Yeah, this sounds like a
Yeah.
fun story. I was
I remember you
holding my
telling me that.
newborn baby that was born 2
Yeah.
days prior.
Right.
That story, I messaged Philip. I was like, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
What a delightful what a lovely
Yeah.
title. This seems like it'll be a
Oh, Autumn Sugar. That's fun. How cute.
Sounds
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a story that I wrote in. I really wanted to write, for a caveat aside that I'm not half the writer, but I really wanted to write my version of an Andre Dubus story. I'm a big Andre Dubus fan, and I wanted to write something that kind of was in the vein of a Dubus story. So, and if you ever read Andre Dubus, his stories are hella dark, and it's like a lot, and most of them are about relationships, poor, going sour. And he's had a couple stories that are like as dark as Autumn Sugar. Um, and so I really wanted to write something that was kind of had that feel of a sort of like 60s relationship story with like a very dark edge to it. So that was why I wrote that story. That was inspired by Debut and me wanting to write an Andre Debut story. So
Yeah.
which is why there's so much, like, if even the dialogue in that story is sort of different. The way I wrote it, it's kind of choppy, and it's sort of like it's kind of got a little bit of a 60s style to it, and with the way they interact, the husband and the wife, and yeah. So anyway, that was the idea, and I knew the inspiration for that story was I woke up one morning, and it's I don't know, at some point I must have seen or heard or saw on TV, because we don't have burning leaves in LA, but must have been some story. I must have been retelling, or somebody must have been telling me a story about burning leaves or something, but it was in my head somehow. And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of horrible if like a kid burned alive, fell asleep in a pile of leaves, and then was burned alive by his own father. And
I mean, that's kind of you'd have to
that was
nuance
the first
it.
thing. That was the first thing that popped into my head. And then I was like, that's really dark and horrible, but I really love it. And then I was kind of like, but I really want to write it in a very, like, that's a very literary story. It's kind of slow. It's very paced, but what's going to happen. So that's not really the point of the story. The point of the story is the father and his relationship with his son, and the mother's it's all these three people interacting with each other, and meanwhile there's kind of like the ghost of the father in the house. There's like this shadowy past that they're kind of dealing with. So, and then the kid, basically the idea is that the kid's the victim to all of their kind of mistakes, was sort of the theme. And the kid was the kind of like the victim, but maybe he's alive.
Yeah,
I like the ending of the story, because you know what happened, but then maybe it didn't really happen if you don't want to think it was that dark.
Yeah.
You don't want to
Kind
believe
of
that
like, remember the
happened.
story of the monkey's paw?
Sure.
where how that
Yeah.
ends. They open the door and there's nothing there, but you don't know if there had been something there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that was interesting because um, I wrote that story for an anthology, and I have to give credit where credit's due. And I wrote it for an anthology, the Flame Tree anthology, and the editor was Mark Morris. And Mark was like, "Dude, I love this story. I love your writing. Can you give me just like a smidge of hope? Can you give me like a ray of like a pinprick of hope?" And because originally the story ended with the mother looking out the window and not seeing the specter of the kid behind her. And I said, I can't give you hope, but I will give you a ghost. And and but if you reread the story, there's a few parts in the story where I drop about the ghost of the quote unquote, they're both feeling the weight of I think it's the man's father. It's because it's their house. They moved into the parents' house, and the burden of fatherhood and all that. So it's kind of supposed to be like a little bit of not a ghost story, but it's kind of like the spirit represents this burden that he's been handed. And with that scene where he slaps the kid or hits the kid, it's kind of like it's it's a representation of his failure, and the kid's burden to pay for his failure. And but I kind of like the idea of the kid being like part of that part of that soup, becoming part of the house for forever, becoming part of that history that will continue to haunt the house. Or maybe he's alive.
Yeah. 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 No. And that's the thing. That's what
Maybe he's just a little charred.
yeah, maybe he's
You know,
just a little singed.
he's got a little leaf dust on him. He
I
smells
don't
a
know
little
if
like
you
autumn
remember
sugar.
or not, Philip, but you had him climbing over cinder blocks to get into the pit. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just thinking that the 6-year-old's not really going to be that athletic and just like, but I knew where you were going, and I'm like, it's either the kid or the dog. It's the kid or the dog.
Yeah.
I
What
would
is he
never do that to a
cooking?
dog.
Good. Yeah,
The
you don't want to
dog's
do that to the
fine.
dog.
Wow.
I like the rejects quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a oldie but a goodie.
yeah. So the Rejects was the first story I ever sold to an anthology,
Wow.
and I sold it to an anthology called Giraffes on the Moon ? And I had just written.
You guys want to see
Yeah,
Flex.
I had just
Uh-oh.
written.
tiny flex? Tiny flex.
I think I just. I'll have to look at my chronology on my website because this is why I do that shit so I can remember. But I think it was I think it was right after Mother or Altar. It was it was one of the first few stories I ever wrote. Anyway, so I wrote it for the anthology because Jordan Krall, who published that book that Mitch has held up, also published Mother and also published Altar, the chapbooks. And whatever, I wrote it, and then I think around 3 or 4 years ago, that book went out of print, and I was like, I kind of like that story. I want to revisit it. So I looked at it again. I kind of did a rewrite, and I expanded it a little bit. I think I added like 1,000 words, and then I published that as a Kindle single because I just didn't know what else to do with it. And whatever, probably sold a couple dozen copies of that, and then but then when I did this pulp, the No One Is Safe book, I was like, I thought it'd be a good fit for the book, so I took down the single, gave it another edit, give it another pass, tweaked a few things, and that's what's in the final books. But it's definitely expanded. If you read that story that's in that book, and then read the story that's in this book, they're pretty
This book.
they're pretty different. I mean, yeah, Stephen. They're not different. Like the same story. It's the same story, but it's definitely it's more of a meal with the final product. It's better, and it's frankly better written because I've had a lot of writing experience from when I wrote it in 2015 to when I wrote it in 2023 or whatever.
Yeah. No, did you talk to any conspiracy theorists about how the moon is actually hollow and it's a space station
It's
satellite
cheese.
up there? Did you?
It's cheese and it's flat.
Yeah.
I think no. So the Hollow Moon thing, when I wrote the rejects, the Hollow Moon thing was kind of making the rounds.
Mm.
And I think
It's a good fun one.
it's a great fun theory. And I think that was in my head when he came up with the theme giraffes on the moon. Because I was kind of like, what am I gonna, I don't want to write about giraffes. But then I kind of thought about what would be cool if they were, I mean, obviously, because you guys read the story, but I was like, it'd be kind of cool if like the center of the moon was like this like weird base of the aliens who created our planet,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where they dumped all the stuff that didn't work. It's like the reject pile, ergo the rejects.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ending, of course, being that Cthulhu exists. He was just hanging out in an alternate dimension. But when they unearthed the rejected Cthulhu bones, he calls to the real Cthulhu, who then comes in hot, and destroys the earth. But I didn't write that part. I just wrote up to the point where that's what's happening. That's what's going to happen next. So it's just goes downhill from the end of that story.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's usually where you leave everybody. You leave, and that, I think the title for this is "No One Is Safe," and that includes the reader who's reading the book and is left in a ditch, burnt by leaves and Cthulhu.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if any. Well, yeah, a couple stories end happily. Roe ends somewhat happily.
Yeah.
She lives.
No,
One
that
of them
was,
lived.
yeah, that's why I think that, that would be a great one. I love the two guys, and I had a very fatal error when I was reading, and it was all reader comprehension. I'm horrible at it. But I got Brad and Tom mixed up in the description. So like at one point she's like, I could beat Tom's ass. I don't have a chance against Brad. And I'm like, wait, isn't Tom the chisel? So it kind of threw me off. I had to go back, but I do love the way you created those two characters and their whole indifference to what they're doing. I don't know, it added something to it where I almost like, I thought they were like not such bad guys. Like they're sitting there having coffee.
Right.
They're like, hey, you want some?
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool moment.
Oh, you thought they were pretty good guys after they murdered her friend?
I mean, it was just sort of
okay.
like,
No, at that point, you're not supposed to think they're good guys anymore.
They're
I mean, they're like
feet
down to
hat.
earth,
Jeff was kind of like, I want to hang out with these guys. I want
Like,
to
it's like,
get on the RV thing or the four-wheeler and
They like coffee.
have some coffee.
Who doesn't
Not
like-
everyone likes coffee.
Yeah.
but it was just so, it was such a weird, surreal moment where these guys are just chilling, and
Right, and
you're
she's in the
almost
middle
like,
of the lake. Yeah.
maybe Jesse should just go have a cup of coffee. Like what? Maybe just let this whole crazy episode go. Like, it's almost not comical, but so surreal that two guys could be like that and could be so casual about it. I think that adds to the barbarity.
Well, I think also that it was important that they were not necessarily killing for pleasure.
Right.
They were killing in a sacrificial manner, so that the creature wouldn't continue feast on them and their family members. So they had to keep sacrificing women to the thing, or whatever, because otherwise the creature would get too hungry. But
there's an option C. Just don't swim in the goddamn pond. You need to stay out of it.
No, but they grew up. This was just kind of a thing they did. It was how they were they did.
Right.
And so so it kind of gave. But that's why I thought it was interesting for me to write that story, because I thought when they're killing when they kill the friend, the one guy's like, dude, almost like, dude, what are you doing? Like, because he was getting into it.
Right.
And I thought that was when I was writing, I thought that was interesting to me, because I was like, because up until then, maybe it had been a little bit more ritualistic, where maybe they just like drug him and drag him out to the lake and throw him in the water. And all of a sudden this guy was kind of beginning to turn into someone who enjoyed
Yeah.
killing. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic because it almost made them it gave them a little bit more of a separation where you kind of almost believed Tom a little bit when he was like, hey, look, just come in, let it go. But you knew the other guy was never like, he was like, Brad was always going to be like, he was out for blood. So
Yeah.
it kind of increased the tension a little bit because now there was tension between all three characters and not just the two and the one. So that was purposeful. What was actually interesting about that story is that, and I still feel bad to this day. I corrected it in the deluxe edition that's coming out from Thunderstorm, but I felt bad because I had two women read the story for me, both of which were, one of which had been a college row crew member, and the other of which had crewed in the Olympics and has won gold medals. And they both read the story and they gave me amazing feedback, right? So a lot of the little teeny details were right about how she referred to the the oars and just some of the stuff about her hands and just like a lot of little details. They really made the story a lot better, but I forgot to put them in the acknowledgments, and so I corrected it in the deluxe edition. But yeah, that's a fun story. I came up with the idea for that story when I was in the Catskills, which is where the story takes place, staying at a house, which is the story is based on, that had this little pond in the back. And much like the booster, I was like, hey, what if like if you were to row out there in the middle, like you and someone is trying to kill you, they wouldn't be able to get to you. But you wouldn't be able to get out. And my wife's like, what? And I'm like, no, I'm just saying, if you were to row out, and if I had like, an RTV or whatever, and you would be stuck. There's no way you could get to shore. And she's like, okay, but I could just like hang out in the middle of the lake as much. I go, well, maybe you could, unless what if there's like a giant monster in the lake? Now you're in big trouble.
You're de-incentivized for
the
staying.
the one thing I found that was interesting, that she was waiting for them to try to get away. Well, when they were throwing her friend's body in, they might have been distracted long enough that she should have tried to row to the other side, where they might not have had enough time to get to the ATV.
I love it. I love that you're even thinking it. I know. My hope with that story, and this is the truth, my hope with that story was that there's a few times where the reader's like, dude, go now.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you said that, because that's exactly what I was really hoping that people might feel. Just like when you're watching a horror movie and you're like, okay, go, run,
Right.
Don't go down there, whatever. But I tried not to make her stupid. And there are a couple times where she does go for it and she falls short. And but yeah, I thought that'd be fun to have there be a couple moments where you're like, the reader might be like, go, they're on the deck or they're having coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
Jeff's hanging out with them.
I'm tempted. But the thing is, in that moment, Lance, I forgave her because of the shock of seeing her best friend get dumped. It's sort of like, it's going to take the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, she's in shock, so you're not going to think straight if you're in
right.
shock.
You're just going to be like, and I always marvel at those stories where somebody's at the point of exhaustion, because like, I can barely stay awake all day. So for somebody to be like up and ready to row to save their life, it's like you
yeah,
feel
it's not a speedboat. It's like you grab those oars and you're
right.
pumping it, and it's it takes a lot. I've having done it myself a few times. It takes a while to get going.
It does.
And all they gotta do is hop on one of those things and buzz around the thing, and you're screwed. So yeah, I thought that was a fun story to write, and I'm hoping that it gets adapted. But we'll see. It's being shopped right now, so we'll see.
That'd be a fun movie.
It would be.
Yeah, I think it'd be a fun like Netflix movie or something, like but or whatever. Maybe they do a bigger budget.
It'd be a great summer movie, or like the end of summer, or I know it's in July, but
what's fun about that story, and this is something I love doing in my stories if I can, when it serves the story. But what's fun about that story is I also like the idea of writing a story that where you just thought this story was going to be about these like guys who were killing women, and it was going to be like a human v human bit. So it was really fun for me to write that first moment when the black tentacles creeps, comes over the side of the boat, because I knew at that point the readers would be like, oh, this is we're going a whole different direction now, which is kind of exciting because it's like, oh, now I want to know what happens with the monster. So yeah, so I like flipping a story on its head like that, when possible.
Yeah, that's the one thing about your stories is like there are, and I think that's why Autumn Sugar got to me too, because those two characters, the dad and the mom, I mean, they had their flaws, they're trying their best, and they're likable people, even though the dad did a bad thing, and like you said, it was a bad moment in a life. But you got a lot of characters that I'm like, this person's a jerk. I'm really not rooting for him. Like Wish. That kid,
There's no likable characters in The Wish.
none. And
Yeah.
and I think that's good, because again, it's refreshing. I like to blow things up. I like to see things that I don't like to know where I'm going in a story, or if I can guess it. Or like, okay, now they're not like, so what you do with your characters in like Gothic's another one where the main character, I mean, he might not have always been an asshole, but shit, I mean,
Yeah.
I like that. So
He becomes the villain at the end. Yeah. And yeah, and you can go, it's a bit of a tightrope walk. You don't want to have you still have to have readers invested. So you're trying to walk that line of, I want you to have empathy for this character, but I don't want you to necessarily like him. Unlike Jeff, who wants to hang out with the two serial killers.
they had coffee.
That
I mean,
aside, that was
kind
not
of
an
a sucker.
I was not going for that. But but yeah, so you have to kind of walk that line a little bit, because you don't want them it's okay for them to be unlikable, but they can't be you can't be unempathetic. I don't know if that's a word, toward them. You still have to invest in them, and you still have to kind of want to see what happens to them. So that's kind of the trick, because sometimes you'll read these stories, and I've read some stories, from other writers, and it's just like there's like like I'm making it up, but like there's like a burglar and he's a jerk, and then he goes into the house and the husband and the wife are fighting and they're jerks and he's stealing stuff, and you're kind of like, I don't give a shit what happens. I don't care if they all die. I don't care if they, yeah. So you don't want that. You gotta figure out a way to that middle ground where you still want the reader to be invested. With Roe, it was easier because you were invested in the
Jesse,
girl
yeah.
Jessie living, and I kind of built her up, early on and throughout, that she's like this courageous person, and she's an athlete, and she's worked hard her whole life, and so you really root for her to live. Whereas her friend who died, I don't really invest that amount of time in, because I don't really care. Her death was more of a plot point, versus it wasn't supposed to be emotionally impactful for the reader, because I was really just trying to get to the lake. So but sometimes I'll play that differently, where I'll want the reader to be more invested in a character, and then I kill them, and then it's because I want that emotional impact. But with this one, I wasn't as concerned about that as much as I was just getting her to the lake, and not taking a long time to do it, because it was already, when I was writing it, I was like, I'm pushing it. Like, they're having drinks, they're loading the groceries, they're talking about the house, they're going to bed. I'm like, I got to start killing people. So,
well, and
so,
you also gave us a hint earlier. You mentioned that she died earlier in the story.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Like she's the main character's reminiscing, and
They were best friends
What did I
right up
do?
until the day she died. Yeah.
Oh, yes. That was
Foreshadowing.
a tease. That's a tease. Yes.
Now, I will say what Blake did for the story, though, it was a couple of things. It made it all very real. You got a very clear sense of the stakes right in that moment. And
Right.
and you also were more terrified for Jesse because of those stakes. So, and I think that was, and it also showed sort of the indifference of the two guys. Like, holy shit, they've done this a lot before. Obviously, nobody's this
Right.
callous. So
And they were groomed. They groomed the groomed. Yeah, because the I mean, you still want to make her a person,
yeah,
so that, but I just didn't want to spend too much time on her, because I just, like I said, if it was a novel, maybe we do that. But I think that story already is like 24,000 words, so it was pushing it. And so yeah, but it did. I think you're exactly right. It definitely, you knew right then what the stakes were. You knew exactly what these guys were capable of. And so you knew her danger, like, was very real. So when they're chasing her, into the other room or whatever, it's not to catch her, it's to kill her. And
right.
and again, even on the lake, when Tom is like trying to convince her that it's okay to come in, as a reader, I'm hoping anyway, you're being like, he's lying,
Oh
don't do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So that's all set up for the stuff, for everything that comes later. Yeah.
If you add in the story how the coffee smells, maybe the aroma of the rich coffee reaches her, and like that might appeal more. I don't know. But do you think
Right.
your characters ever like look over their shoulders and say, "God damn it, I'm in a Fracassi story," and like, son of a bitch, why couldn't I be in a Bentley Little story? Nothing happens to them.
Right. Right.
I think they do.
I don't. I think they might. I could see that. I think it's like you never really know. You never really know who's going to come out the other end. That's one of the interesting things about writing in this genre. And I think it's like I think it's fun to play with preconceptions too. Like, I think,
Yes.
especially when you read a lot of genre work, you're kind of like, oh, I know where this is going. I know where this is going. Um, and nothing frustrates me more as a reader is when I'm like 100 pages into a novel, and I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly where this is going. And sometimes, the journey is worth it. And I've written stories. Like, I wrote a story once called, what was the name of that story? It was about a woman who fell in love with who had an affair with the back of her husband's head. Um, did you read it? It was in the Midnight Exhibit. Did you
Yeah,
read that story, Mitch?
I haven't read
Steven,
that one
did you read
yet.
it?
I've read it.
Steven,
Yeah,
you read it?
yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, but
Yeah,
that's a story where it's a 10,000 word story. It's a long story, and that was a story where I was even frustrating myself, because like, everybody and their brother knows how this story is going to end, and I couldn't really, I don't know, but I couldn't see a different way, and I just kind of felt like, well, it just is what it is, and it's just about the journey but that story is one of those stories where it hasn't been reprinted, because I've always felt a little bit uncomfortable about it, but for that reason. And people who have read that book have criticized my story in that same way by saying, like, I knew it was coming 100 miles away. It was not 100% the point, but it was, so I don't know. So sometimes it's hard. It's to defy expectations.
Well,
So,
that's
but
what's
you do try. At least I do.
and you do more than most, and that's why Autumn Sugar was so weird to me, because I'm like, I think I know where this is going, but it's a Philip Fracassi story. He's gonna zig,
Right.
and he's not gonna
Right.
take me there. And then when it did go where you think it's gonna go, it is about like the delivery and how it's
Yeah.
handled and the depth of it. So it doesn't matter, I think, if people sit and guess, because everybody does that. And
Yeah, and the difference with that story was, I purposely wrote knowing that everyone knew, or pretty much knew where it was going. And I wanted to really stretch out the tension of like when you know how it's going to end, but so you're not reading all this other stuff because it's rote or because it's just filler. It's because it's kind of stretching. It's stretching like the story in sort of different ways, so that as a reader you're like, well, wait a minute, do I know how it's going to end? Yeah, I know how it's going to end. Well, wait a minute, is that how it's going to end? So I kind of like the idea that kind of like keeping you a little bit like going through these motions and the emotions of this relationship and the fight and all that kind of stuff in a way. I don't know. It's hard to explain sometimes the way I think about stories. They're very malleable to me in my head. I sort of think of a story as like this object that sort of stretches in different ways and I can kind of shape in different ways. And whenever I think of a story, I think of like an amoeba like object where it's like this thing, and I can kind of, once gets too long or if this gets too wide, I kind of suck it in or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it. That's just the way my brain works. But so that's a story where I was like, it'd be fun for people to know where it's going, but also to kind of like lead them through this weird kind of maze to get there. But anyway, that one I wrote very much with the intention of just trying to like make you go into the woodshed and get the turpentine off the shelf, knowing no, don't get the kerosene off the shelf. And the dad doesn't want you to remember his father never used the lighter fluid, but now he's going to use lighter fluid. And I don't know. And the mother like not making the kid come in for dinner, and the dog running away. There's just a lot of stuff where you're like, no, somebody stop this.
Right.
And you can't stop
You're
it.
watching Final Destination.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, you have the reader sitting there screaming like, that's the fun thing. It's now tense for the reader that you're like, I cannot go to this inevitable horror show, and yet you're getting dragged slowly there. You're the victim.
Yeah.
One of the things I liked about this collection is that I can only read like one story a day, because after I read the story, some of them were longer. There's a lot to think about what happened in the story. And like, I just want to think about that rather than go on to the next one. Like some other authors, you can read their short story books and go through about 3 or 4 a day.
Yeah.
Yours, I could only handle one a day just because there was a lot to think about.
Right.
That's actually how I read them too. Always have. Even the novels, I only read one chapter and I think about it. And the next day I'll read another one.
Yeah, that's good.
One of my favorite stories was the My Father's Ashes.
Yeah.
A bad pun intended. I'm kind of a sucker for vampire stories.
Sure.
And I liked the couple twists you threw in at the end. There were a couple which made it, different from the normal. You know what's going to happen. I also liked how you kind of humanized the vampire more. He's a caring father rather than the normal caricature of a vampire or blood-sucking monster.
Yeah, that story. My thinking with that story was that I loved the idea of these father-son bonding moments, but being with a vampire as your father. So instead of sitting around a campfire, you're sitting around a corpse. Instead of going hunting for pheasants, you're going hunting for humans. And but in a way that felt very grounded and very real. So it didn't feel like silly or gratuitous. It felt like this would actually be what it would be like to have this growing up with a vampire as your father. And I also loved the other thing that I wanted to do with that story was besides being a little bit of a coming of age piece, obviously, but I really wanted to I like the idea of the story is really about ultimately it's about the mom and her arc from 50s mom smoking in the kitchen, cutting lemons while dad's off doing manly things, to her having and her being sort of like, and a few times in the story she references how she would always feel silly or feel stupid, or she would let the husband, her husband take the lead, and if he was here things would be different. And And so she has this insecurity issue. And I loved at the end that she became this strong defender. And she sacrificed herself to do it. Like, it was kind of like one of those moments where when push came to shove, she stepped up and she became the strong person that she always was, and didn't believe in herself to be. So that for me was very interesting. She was really, for me, the focus of the story, much more than the kid or the dad, even though the story was told from the perspective of the kid for the most part. But yeah, so I liked her arc. I liked the idea of her being coming into her guardian role as the kid is also changing into something that nobody for sure knows what he's going to become, but he's obviously not 100% normal. So yeah, it's a fun story. That was one, like I said, Matt Reeves optioned it. They wrote a script and everything, which I read. And then, yeah, ultimately just ended up falling, kind of going away, which happens most of the time,
Yeah.
So, but there was some early interest. So hopefully at some point, maybe it'll get interest again, and people can, I'd love to see that story that. To me is a very cinematic story in the sense that there's a lot there and there's a lot to draw from. You can really stretch that story into a full kind of 3 acts, whereas I'm basically giving you like the first 1.5 acts, call it. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think we need to redeem the vampire from Twilight. So I think we're
Yeah, I refer to that as toilet, not
Yeah.
Twilight.
yeah.
Well, I like the idea of a vampire story where the vampires are, they're kind of, they're humanized and they're
Like let the right one in.
yeah, sort of like let the right one in. Yes, I would say that for sure. I would say that's a very good comp to My Father's Ashes. Yeah.
It also made me think of Near
I
Dark.
totally got that vibe.
I thought what Near Dark did with the vampire was really
That's
cool.
good too. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I could see it being something in that vein.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
In that artery. Yeah.
Right.
So
I
what
want to know what
else?
time it is. I want to know what time it is in Australia. Sean's here. What time is it there, Sean?
10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God.
12 hours difference from me.
Yeah.
No, no beers for me.
No beer.
Yeah. No. Well,
Be
I
a
mean,
real
as
long day.
I always say when I have my first scotch, it's 10 a.m. somewhere.
Yep. I'm having a little bit to toast Philip with A24.
Cheers. I know I'm out of drink.
Yeah, you're gonna have you'll remedy that in a few weeks.
I'm gonna remember that in a few minutes. Yeah, but we're happy to talk about any of the other stories or.
Yeah, my favorite. I think one of my favorites. I love My Father's Ashes. I'm also a big vampire fan.
I don't think I knew that, Mitch.
Oh, really? Yeah. Autumn Sugar
Hmm.
wrecked me, but I absolutely love. This is gonna be weird. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you guys will agree. I love The View. I have read that story. It's like 1 page, but I've read that story, I think, 10 times. There's something about it that I just absolutely love.
Well,
Maybe it's like the slight hope at the end. I don't know.
It's amazing how much it tells in just 2 pages.
Incredible, yeah. It's an incredible little story.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember why I wrote that story. I don't even know why I wrote that story.
Yeah.
I think it was just something I just wrote. Like I just had an idea. I think I had an idea. I like the idea of a woman being buried in the bottom of a pool, like her body being concreted into the bottom of the pool. And I think that was the first thought. And then I think an afterthought was, oh, it'd be kind of cool if she could like still see and hear and sense what was happening in the pool. And then I think it went from being like maybe something dark and criminal to something more like poetic
Yeah.
and cerebral and pretty.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story. I
You
love it.
kinda-
Yeah, I like
then
that
just
story
look
too,
at it
actually.
again. Yeah, I kind of got the same vibe I got from what was it, the last paragraph in the road.
Oh.
Like similar, like, God, what a terrible fucking, but who knows, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, she's dead.
Clearly.
Not coming back. But it's like I see. I can't draw comparisons. I think Mitch has read my newest book, and yeah, there's sometimes what I do, and I've done this with, like, I did it in Fragile Dreams too. I think, now that I'm thinking about it, sometimes what I do is I give you a little bit of hope, like I said, like that pinprick of hope, like in Fragile Dreams, which is not in this collection, isn't Beneath the Pale Sky, but that's a book where the ending is a little bit left open, a little bit to interpretation as to the end result. So, but not so much that what I try and do when I do that is I never try to frustrate a reader. There's nothing more annoying to me as a reader is or when I'm watching a movie or reading a book, or whatever, to be like, the author's like, and then I don't really know what happens, so we're just gonna like smudge it out into this ambiguous ending and walk away. I definitely want to always have an ending, but sometimes the ending can be open to interpretation, but you still have the ending. So I try to do that so that even if it's a little bit open to interpretation, it's not necessarily ambiguous. You, like with Mandala is another story where
Also, sorry, I'll be right back. I have a crying baby.
where you have an ending that's very much on the surface, and then you have potential, like maybe a different ending if you really want to like think about it.
Yeah, I got to read that. I got to read.
Oh, you haven't read Mandala yet?
No, I haven't read Behold the Void.
Oh, okay. Have you read Alter?
No, I have not read Alter.
What?
No, I got it right
So you
here.
don't even know
It
you
is.
don't even know what the movie's about.
It is up. I have got to read it, and then the Fate of Nero. These two things are
Yeah,
well,
don't read the Fate of
Nero
Nero
is in here.
first.
Huh?
Yes. Yeah, don't read the Fate of Nero first.
No, I won't.
Read Alter first.
Yeah, no, I have
I'm
got to.
shocked you haven't read Alter.
I am too. Well, I'm not
It's a
really,
lot of
because I know me.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of good, clean fun.
I find that hard to believe. It's a Fracassi story after all, I imagine. And if A24 is doing it, then it's gonna have teeth, and it's gonna hurt, I think.
Yeah, it is. It does. I'm looking at the other stories in here. So yeah, but yeah, your book, yeah, whatever. I don't know, whatever questions you guys
Yeah,
have, I can answer. I'm happy to answer.
We're up here at
Yeah,
the 90-minute mark. Yeah, go ahead, John.
no, I was just saying.
Sean.
No, that's all right. I really enjoyed the rejects. That's something I wanted more of the story of. I really love the Wish, but the one I really loved Overnight. That
Oh,
for some
yeah.
reason
Oh, interesting.
that just got my anxiety levels pumping, especially the final scene. I just that's the one I felt the most tension in.
Yeah, Overnight. Overnight was originally see, Jeff, I'm doing the thing.
Going to the magic shelf.
I'm going to the magic. Is it a shelf or is it something else?
I have no idea.
Is it like a weird vortex that I just reach into?
They could be levitating.
So this is the original Overnight, which, as you can see, is a hardcover, beautiful cover, and they are with like, oh yeah, Steven's got one. I didn't pay for his, yes sir. Oh yeah, Sean's got one. Cool, yeah, and it's got
Everybody's
this is
got one.
I have 1 out of 60, but so no, you guys can't have it, but so I originally wrote it. You give me one? Oh, thank you. my wife. You want to say hello to the book club? Can't see. Oh,
Hello.
Stephanie.
How many
Yeah, you
books
guys
are
would meet
in
her
this
in.
series? Do you know?
Oh, that I don't know. I don't know how many were in the series. Thank you, baby. The anyway, so I was my day job, at least the last for the last 5 or 6 years before I started writing full time, was I was a location manager. So I worked in film and TV locations, and I would before that I was a security guard. I did exactly what that guy does in overnight. I was the guy who watched the sets, and then I kind of worked my way up, and I became a location manager, got unionized, and all that stuff. So it's very much me writing to with what I know, and I is just yeah, and I think I just wanted this. I just had this idea that like it's pretty obviously because it's there, but I just was like it'd be kind of cool if like this creepy guy bribed a guard to get some, you know, some memorabilia from this like starlet's trailer, and in real life, those actor trailers are like really like like they're sacred ground. They're very weird about it, and but anybody could really walk into one if you worked on the set, and and so yeah, and then I just got into the whole thing with that and the guard and a little bit of his past. And I think what happened was at the end, and I actually worked, I did the lot I'm describing in that story where it's at the top of this like hill and there's like a building and all this, that was very much based on this place where I was, where we were filming Silicon Valley for like a month. And I just thought it was kind of weird that they were at the top of this like hill and it was like this empty bank building. And so anyway, that was the idea, how I got the idea. And then the ending went kind of off the rails, to Sean's point, because I really wanted to, have her, have her revenge. And so that was kind of my way of doing it. And there's a couple of things in there, a couple of things about that story that you may or may not find interesting. One which is I wrote a novel called Happy Holly. That's, I think Steven has a copy, and Mitch may or may not have a copy. I can't remember, but and Holly Pages is the actress in Happy Holly, and Holly Pages gets a cameo in Gothic, where Tyson is remembering screwing an actress on his old desk by the name of Holly Pages, and then and then she's also in she's an overnight. And I think she's in something else as well. I think there's another story I wrote where
You have your own
she's
Holly
mentioned.
then.
Yeah, my own Holly. My Holly was first, and then so there's that, and then the other thing about that story that's interesting is I play with the idea of reality. So there's a scene when he's with his daughter, and his daughter's in the back seat, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm drawing you, Daddy." And he goes, "Oh, what are we at?" I don't remember. But, "Oh, we are at the park or whatever." And she goes, "No, you're in a movie." And it kind of like gets into the creeps.
Yeah.
She's like, "You, Mommy, you're in a movie." And then at the end, when reality is sort of shattering with her, to what's happening to his daughter, what's happening on the screen, and all that kind of stuff. And then the wife, who I described multiple times as having brown eyes, when she turns to him at the end and smiles at him, and I can't even remember what her last line is. I make a point to say that she's got dazzling blue eyes, and the idea is that Holly has sort of taken over his entire world, and he's basically in this like hell where Holly is going to have, is going to be basically feasting on his soul for as long as she chooses, through his wife and through his kid and all this sort of stuff. So that was sort of my weird spiral out about that. But the wife at the end has different colored eyes, and she's kind of in on it. And I think she said something about, like, I want to stay for the credits because you're in them, or something like that.
Yes.
I put that book.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is that he's now in this, basically he's kind of slipped out of reality, sort of now in this sort of purgatorial hellscape where Holly runs things.
It's
If
so
you
weird
want that
considering how Holly ends up.
in the novel
Yeah,
or in the story
in the book.
in Overnight, you mean?
Holly?
In Happy Holly.
Oh, and Happy Holly. Oh, and Happy Holly. Yeah. Happy Holly, I don't think will ever see the light of day.
It's not
Unfortunately.
canon.
I don't think it's, well, I don't think it's not canon, but I don't think it'll ever be published. The only thing I might do with Happy Holly, I was actually asking, did you ever finish it? You did finish it.
Yes,
Did you like it?
I
You
did.
can say no. Did
No,
you?
I did.
You can.
I
You don't have
liked
to
it,
lie.
but I definitely had notes. Like that, like I felt like
Right.
there were chapters that might have maybe have been missing.
That's possible.
Like I
But
was
anyways,
surprised. I was surprised that the story never went back to him. The kid
the
from
the
growing up.
boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Well, it's
never
interesting you said it because
revisited him after her, like her final chapter.
we'll talk about it. I would love to we'll talk about it at Fracassi
Over
because I want to
beers.
hear your notes on it. But yeah, the only thing I might do with Happy Holidays, I might do like I might rewrite it and then do like 100-copy alter publishing run, and that'd be it. And just for like super fans who want everything, and that way it's there, and then I never have to think about it again. So I don't know.
So I'll buy a bunch of them and then trade Mitch for his glossy Gothic.
The glossy Gothic. Yeah.
They're out there. We just got to find them.
Got to find them. It's like shiny Pokemon.
I can't imagine anybody wants them.
I mean, it's just the novelty of it. I just us here, I was annoyed with the whole way Cemetery Dance handled that.
Oh,
And
so as long as we're private, you're gonna diss Cemetery Dance.
I would never
Right.
ever
We
This
never
is
say anything
being
publicly,
recorded,
right.
though.
publicly talk
no,
about
Jeff.
Chizzy Dick.
It's being recorded.
Pause the
Never.
recording.
It is
We can
recorded.
cut it out, Jeff. We can cut it out. We can cut it out.
We could. So I was annoyed with the whole way, and so it broke my heart that they were doing that. But it's even worse when I consider they didn't even pay Chad Lutzke.
It's
What was weird for me was hearing about hearing from Philip all their plans and how excited they were, and seeing how excited they were to talk about it, and then seeing what I got in the mail. That was really weird.
Yeah. I just
then
think,
I thought about it. I was like, God, I wonder if Dan is experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing right now.
yeah, I think it sort of fell through a crack in a fractured organization.
Well, the statement I'll make about it, and then we can go back and talk about knowing to say is that I'm a Cemetery Dance collector. So I've been collecting Cemetery Dance books for 30 years. And when every single Cemetery Dance book ever published is a hardcover with a jacket,
Mm-hmm.
when they say we're going to do a hardcover of your book, I'm assuming it's going to be like every single other Cemetery Dance book that's ever been published.
right.
In the 30 years they've been in business, they've never ever done anything but the Bentley Little hardcover, whatever that,
Right.
the traditional. So the fact that they came out on the day of release and said, "Oh no, it's whatever turtle shell or whatever they call it," I was like, "What are you talking about?" And like, why am I just knowing that? Telling me this now
Yeah.
on the day of the book's release. Anyway, so
Yeah.
Well,
that's why
it wasn't handled very well.
That's why the paperback, I would say, was the best way to go from the start.
I love the paperbacks.
Yeah.
I'm glad the hardcovers are out there, the nicer ones. I'm glad they're out there. I'm glad people got them, and I'm glad and that was the decision that we made. I said, look, let's print 750 of them or whatever it was, and then let's not print anymore. And don't sell them on Amazon. Only sell them through CD. And they were like, "That's fine. Well, that's what we'll do." And that's what we did. And then they were gone really fast. And now they're gone.
Yeah, no, and I think that with the cover design and the way it's supposed to look distressed, it doesn't work on the hardcover unless they had a dust jacket. So that's why the paperback is definitely the way to go. And I think those turned out really nice. So
I thought so too. I love the paperback. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm in discussions with the trade publisher for Gothic 2 right now. So hopefully.
Yeah, that would be excellent. That would be superb. And anybody else? I mean, we're 90 minutes in. I don't know if there's anything else anybody else wants to talk about. Any story
Could
we
we
didn't touch
talk
on?
briefly about Marmalade? That seems like a story that's really kind of cinematic.
Which
and
story,
it's
John?
Marmalade.
Marmalade.
Marmalade?
Marmalade.
Marmalade.
John, let's all do it together. Mar, New Hampshire, my New Hampshire friends can't pronounce their R's. Yeah, let's talk about Marmalade.
I like
Marmalade.
Sorry.
Marmalade was a story that I started writing in 2000 and I want to say like 2010.
Wow.
Before Mother, before any of that stuff. Is that right?
I don't
could
know.
be lying about that.
We can't.
But it was definitely early. It was very, very early. It was definitely right around or before when Mother and all that stuff was being written. I was writing all that. So I was just kind of starting writing genre fiction, and I had this idea about a cat that sucked the disease out of a person, and I started writing it. And I think I got like 5 pages in, and I was like, "This is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever written." And I was like, "I'm not seeing it. I'm not on board." No, and I couldn't really get the voice. Anyway, so then I got this, and then a few years ago, I was offered. They wanted me to commission to write a story for the Bad Book, and I said, well, I had this story about a miracle cat. Would that work thematically? Because the whole Jesus miracle thing. And they were like, yeah, we love it. So I said, okay. So I dug out the old 5 pages I'd written. And what I did was because I didn't like that the way that story opens is with a kid talking.
Yeah.
And he's like making fun of the old lady. And so what I did was I said, what if the whole story didn't have to be the kid? The kid could just be one of the many neighbors who was telling the story of what happened. And that's when it clicked in for me. And I got very excited, and I basically just wrote the whole story in like 2 days. And so that's when I created the idea of there was like a faux interviewer, and there were all these different neighbors all telling him different pieces of what happened. And then at the end, I originally, when I was writing it, when I was coming to the end, I was like, I'm just going to have this girl basically turn into a demon because she visited hell and now he's brought her back. And I thought that'd be really fun, and it was. And then when I got there, I was like, it didn't feel like enough, so that's when I dragged them all out to the tree and hung them. And that felt better to me because it felt like it felt it felt like it had,
felt
it
better.
felt like it felt more. It felt like it had more. It felt like it had more like history to it, like more gravitas to it. Like there's this old tree, and that's when I did the whole tag after that because I was like, oh, the kid was talking about the hanging tree and Marmalade kind of being this like, this ghost story in a way that the kids all talk about. The cat that you can hear scratching at the door when you're sick, which I thought was really creepy and fun. So yeah, that was the road. That was the road that I went through on Marmalade. And I have an orange tabby, so that was easy. Who's a wonderful but very boisterous cat. So here's the other thing about Marmalade is this one time I went down, it was like 6 a.m, and I was walking down the stairs, and as I came down the stairs, as I came down the stairs, you can sort of see the floor. and this is a true story. My wife was here; she'd back me up. And my cat was sitting there looking up at me, and I was like, "Hey, Perry," and then I noticed because it was like 6 a.m. I hadn't had coffee yet, and I noticed that there was like this brown lump next to him, and I was like, "Huh." And he was like looking at me like, "Look what I did." He's all proud, and the brown lump was a squirrel.
Ooh.
But what's cool is that there was another brown lump sort of adjacent, like sort of set aside. So this like Perry was here and the squirrel was here, and then there's like this other brown lump like back here. And I'm like, what is that? And what my cat had done is he decapitated the squirrel, separated the head from the body, and then proceeded to wait for me to come downstairs to present his masterpiece.
Yes.
And I'm sure he'd been batting her on the head, trying to
Your
get just
cat
the
has
right
the
angle.
right owner.
Yeah, for a while. And I think that was when I got excited about writing more about Marmalade. But I'd already written the 5 pages before that. But that was when I think it got a little darker.
What's in the
Perry's
box,
fault.
Perry? What's in the
Yeah.
box?
Yeah, that's a true story. My cat used to be big. He doesn't do as much anymore. He's getting a little older. He's 14 now. But he used to be big on bringing us rats and birds, and like once a
Nice.
week we'd get a gift. Yeah, gift for the family. But the fact that he took care in removing the head and then really assembling it,
Well, I mean,
presenting it,
it's like
Put
when
him
you
that
on
go
the
to,
was even I was a little bit like, it's a
I
little
mean,
much.
when you go to a gourmet restaurant, a little bit, it's the meal, it's the flavors,
garnish.
but it's the presentation. I mean, that's where the art is. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Is it a flex if I have the bad book? No.
No, it's not a flex. Is that
Not a
hardcover?
flex. No, it's a soft cover.
Did they make a hardcover bad book?
Yeah, I don't think so. If they did, I think we
I only
better
have the
know.
paperback.
Well, hold on.
Uh-oh. This is the
I'm going to
VJ Books edition.
Yeah, that's the one I have.
I'm going to a different shelf. What's that thing called? The Dark? What is it?
The bad book.
That's not even your book.
It's
Was
It
it?
No,
is
but
my-
this is my this is my anthology show.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I guess I don't have it. I don't know.
I really don't like the way it's printed. It's
Better
like
hit up VJ before you
newspaper
go to business
smudgy.
next
No,
week.
it's weird. It's a
Yeah,
little weird.
I'm not. Yeah.
Not a fan.
Well, it's weird that I don't have the bad book up here. Oh, here. Oh, I do have it. I'm sorry. I do have it. And yes, I don't. It is only a paperback.
Okay, I was about to say.
It was this. The spines are with the Humans Are the Problem, which are also red. So. It got
Oh
lost.
yeah, I got that one as well.
Is it a flex if I show off the proofs of the witch?
Oh yes, that's awesome.
Oh,
Is mine in the mail yet?
Hold it closer to the camera,
No.
Mitch. I don't want to see your face. I want to see the book.
sorry.
Wow, is that printed? Is that
Yeah.
bound?
It's a
Yeah.
Did Jeff do the introduction?
Yeah,
did.
dude.
I
Took
did.
him forever.
Is
It took
is it
me.
signed?
Yes. There
No,
it
it's
is.
not
I
signed
can't
yet.
see that shit.
I have
That
to
is
wait.
What's on the back? What's on the back?
Well, I
Show me
don't
the
want to
back. What is that
spoil it.
little- It's like 6 people here.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love that cover. I love
Yeah.
that cover.
That looks great.
It does.
That looks great.
Very folk.
How many pages? How many pages did it end up being?
So I did a couple proofs. My finished proof is 24 pages.
How wide are the margins?
Not too crazy.
Let's see a page.
Yeah.
Oh
Is
no,
I can't see that. Is the
Not
font?
bad.
Font looks pretty good. Font looks pretty good.
Yeah.
yeah. I
Very
mean, those
Yeah,
are.
readable.
it's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice little
Yeah,
book.
looks nice.
I
I'm
like
happy
it.
with it.
Now, what's the
I gotta-
what's the difference
I gotta
between
fix
that
the
one and the
cover.
letter?
I've got to fix the cover a little bit and move it this
Why?
way.
Yeah, center.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Center it just a tad.
Yeah, go ahead and
mean,
burn that one.
Doesn't
But
bother
this-
me.
Yeah, maybe I'll give this one away.
I mean, it's not like you're printing 20,000 of them like they did Gothic, and that thing was off center.
Yeah, true.
If you hold up the shiny paperback, you'll see how off centered it is. It's the shiny hardcover. I mean, that you have, Mitch.
Oh, this
It's
one?
totally off. Yeah,
Flex.
hold it.
Look at that
flex it. Look up-
shiny.
It's too
No,
shiny.
but look how off center it is. Look, look how
Yeah,
off
it
center
is.
it is.
It's way over.
Yeah,
to
it
the left.
is. Wow.
Yeah.
That drove me crazy
That's
when I saw it. I was
I can
furious.
imagine.
This cover is pretty
You
centered.
guys don't want. You guys have never seen me actually upset. I do get upset. That cover looks dime.
This cover is phenomenal.
That's badass.
You know what it does? You know what it does? It slaps.
It does
slaps.
slap. It slaps very hard.
It slaps.
What is the difference
slap, and
between
slap.
what you just showed us and the lettered edition?
The lettered chapbook.
So this is just the proof. And it's a pale yellow. The numbered
the
is
yellow.
going, yeah, the numbered is going to be just white. Everything is white. White pages, white cover. Okay.
Oh, the numbered is.
Yeah.
And then the lettered is going to be a darker yellow, and the pages will be this kind of like pale yellow. And then it's going to be a sewn binding.
All right.
So,
Very
yeah.
nice.
So better paper on the inside.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Thicker paper
Thicker paper,
Colored.
different binding.
and sewn binding. Because
I always turn to Steven in these situations and ask him if that's enough, Steven, to differentiate. What do you think?
yeah, why not?
Close.
He's not so.
I mess
he's
with
not so-
another
it's
type
close.
of binding too, but I don't know. I think I'm just gonna do
You
that.
might have to throw an illustration in there to make Steven happy.
I
the
might
letter.
That
need
would totally
to,
put it
yeah.
over the edge, especially
see.
if when
Yeah, I
you guys
know.
do it.
I'll draw a picture in it. It's fine.
You better
Look how
put some
many.
effort into
Look how
it, buddy.
many boys in the valleys Mike has on the shelf back there. How many are
That's
up
a
there, Mike? You got
connoisseur.
like.
The beers in the valley.
Are those all empty, or are they all been drinking?
Oh, they're all empty.
They better be.
He's like, yeah, they're empty.
I have one full.
Mike is
God.
bringing special metallic ink Sharpies to the fest, so I can sign everyone's books with the nice metallic Sharpie. Oh, look at that! Are you ready to go?
Thanks, Mike.
I also
I love
got
the
this in the
metallic.
mail today. I got something cool
I
in
had
the
those on
mail.
I had it on my tour, Mike, but I'll tell you, they run out really fast.
Wait, what is it?
Metallic ones.
Oh, cool.
Metallic ones run out faster.
Still waiting on mine.
Yeah, Serafina,
Are you?
man.
Next month. Well,
I had to poke at Paul.
No, Patron.
Well,
I know
the
I'm coming.
books, the chapbooks will be ready. I don't know if everyone here is patron, but the chapbook will be ready. I should be getting the chapbooks within like 2 weeks at the most.
Yeah. probably.
Thanks.
And then once I have everything, I just gotta pack them and sign them, pack them, and ship them. Because I have all the arcs, I have all the bookmarks, I have everything else. I just need the chappies. So they'll be shipped by.
Do you have your?
I would say by end of August. I would say by
extras?
end of August. What?
Will that be enough time for you to bring some of your excess leftovers to sell at the fest, maybe to anybody who isn't one of your Patron members?
Of the second chapbook?
Yeah.
Well, maybe. I wasn't thinking about that, but yeah, I could probably bring like. But here's the problem: if I bring like 10 to the fest, everyone's gonna want one, and then I'm like, no, it's cool. You're gonna get one in like 2 weeks, and I'm like, no, I want one now. And then
Wait 2
like
weeks.
Roselle's gonna want like 3, and I'm just gonna be like, well, I don't. So I don't know if I even introduce that. Maybe I do. I'll see. I just want everyone to be happy. I did hear this totally on the down low. Seriously.
Hold on. You know what? If you're serious about that, hold on.
Plug your ears, children.
Yeah, I don't want to hear this.